واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Just kindly wanted to request the brothers to come on this side of the divider, and once you're here, if there are sisters, you may join us on the other side. So today we're going to continue on our talk regarding the etiquettes of the student of knowledge, and this course has been taught by Sheikh Bilal Phillips, and I am basically giving you a cliff notes of that. So if you want to hear the full thing, I would recommend that you go to that source. He also, the course was taught on a book by Sheikh Bakr Abu Zaid, rahimullah, who wrote this book in order to help guide the Muslims who were seeking knowledge, who were thirsty for knowledge, and make sure that when they sought the knowledge, they were doing it in the proper way, with the proper mentality and the proper intentions. Also, there's a commentary on this same book by Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimullah, and again, this commentary has been spoken about by Sheikh Bilal Phillips, and the commentary itself is available in Arabic. So we're going to continue with regards to etiquettes, and that word itself sounds a little bit scary and a little bit maybe not as exciting as other words, like maybe like talking about jinns or angels or things like that, right? Everybody gets very excited to talk about those topics, but you'll find, inshallah, I hope that you'll find that this topic is so important. It will shape your lifestyle, it'll shape your mentality, it'll shape your behavior, and it'll shape the way you deal with everybody. Okay, this is one of the most important things that we can talk about. As a matter of fact, in the past, when scholars would teach their students, this topic would be the first thing taught, or it would be embedded in their curriculum, in their courses, to make sure the students understand this properly. There is a lot of issues that can happen if the right etiquettes are not present when seeking knowledge. And you have many examples throughout the Muslim world of deviation, of violence, of misguidance, innovation, so on and so forth. And you can link all of that to a lack of understanding, lack of implementing of etiquette. So when we say etiquette, right, the Prophet ﷺ, this hadith, he said that I was sent only to perfect good character, to perfect good akhlaq. When we think about akhlaq, now this is something I used to think before. It's something very superficial. I'm just talking to you personally. Just for the brothers that are here, when I say akhlaq, give me an example of akhlaq, of good character. Just call it out. Call out an example of good character, good akhlaq. Anybody? Okay, give salam, very good. What else? Before entering the home? Okay, you knock, you say bismillah, you say the dua, the adhkar, very good. Yes, go ahead.
Smile.
You smile, very good. What else? How about the brothers over there? Give me an example of good akhlaq. Call it out. Good character, good behavior. Call it out. Not talking in the lecture. That's a good akhlaq, yes? Good. Having a good demeanor, always smiling, being pleasant, very good. Anybody want to add to that? Because this is all true. But we're missing something very important. Right? This is what I mean when I said that I didn't understand what akhlaq was beforehand. Because this is all true. But what is also akhlaq that is important that we're missing? Okay. All right. Let me ask you this question. As a Muslim, right? What is the most important akhlaq that you can have before you die? Very good. Okay, so believing in La ilaha illallah, only Allah, worshipping only Allah. There's no one worthy of worship except Allah, right? So akhlaq is not just our behaviors and our mannerisms, our smiling, our following of the sunnah when we do certain things, the way we eat, the way we sleep. It's not just that. And this is sometimes what is commonly understood. But akhlaq goes way, way beyond that, right? It goes to everything in Islam. the essence of Islam, everything that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has brought to us, that Allah has revealed in the Quran and in the Hadith, right? Everything is akhlaq. This is what he means when he says, I haven't been sent except to perfect character, right? Akhlaq is not just interaction with one another. The most important of akhlaq is interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the most important. Our etiquette with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most important, right? What does that mean? Man, it means so much, right? It means that we fulfill what's fard. We stay away from what's prohibited, right? We seek knowledge so that way we can do our actions that Allah has commanded us to do, right? So akhlaq isn't just, personal demeanor, but it's everything, everything. All of the laws and regulations that we know, especially the ones that come from the Quran and Sunnah, the Sharia, right? How to pray, how to make wudu, right? How to make hajj, how to fast, how to give zakah, for example, believing in the oneness of Allah, knowing Allah, all of this is akhlaq. You understand? You standing up to pray, how to pray, it's akhlaq. It's mannerisms. This is what the Prophet ﷺ has taught us, he's there to teach us this, right? Allah has revealed all this to him to teach us. So when you think about etiquette, everything goes back to etiquettes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can divide etiquettes into three divisions. You can say etiquettes with Allah, etiquettes with creation, and etiquettes with oneself. You can divide it into three parts. But point number 2 and 3, with creation and with oneself, still goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, etiquettes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the most important thing that we need to focus on. And the most important of etiquettes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowing who Allah is. Knowing who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. This is why courses on knowing Allah, learning about His names and attributes are so important. A person may think that it's more academic than other courses, for example, angels and jinns. I keep saying that because everybody likes talking about that, right? You go camping, what's the first thing you guys want to talk about? Hey, let's talk about jinn stories, these things. Seems exciting. But for our akhirah and our lifestyle, learning about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most important thing, and knowing about Him and worshipping Him alone is the most important thing. Now, is the akhlaq of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately falls under the name Tawheed, right? The oneness of Allah, knowing the oneness of Allah, right? And I know this was talked about here before in previous Monday Night Boosts. The thing is, when you take Tawheed and you know that there's three parts to it, right? It's not, all three of them means Tawheed. You cannot have one and say it's Tawheed. So the three parts are what? Tawheed Rububiyyah, very good. What's number 2? What's Rububiyyah mean? What does Tawheed Rububiyyah mean? It sounds scary, but it's not scary. It's simple. You do it every day. What is, Lordship, meaning that Allah is the only creator. Allah is your Lord. Allah is the God, right? This is Tawheed Rububiyyah. That there is a creator. And what's the next Tawheed? Asma wa Sifat, right? His names, His best names, and His attributes. Okay? And what's the third one? Uluhiyah, very good. Or you can say ibadah, they mean say same thing. Basically, Tawheed Asma wa Sifat, meaning that you uphold the oneness of the names of Allah, the best names of Allah, and the attributes of Allah. Tawheed Uluhiyah means that you only worship Allah. That's why it's also called Tawheed Ibadah, that this worship is only reserved for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, if you're missing any of these three things, this is poor etiquette. This is missing akhlaq. You understand? I'll give you an example. Most of the world, most of humanity, believe in a creator. Believe in a creator. So you can say this is Tawheed Rububiyyah. But what they miss is Tawheed Asma wa Sifat and Tawheed Ibadah or Tawheed Uluhiyah. They don't know that. So because they are mistaken that they don't know the other two, they don't know who Allah is. You understand? So then now they end up worshipping other than Allah. Or they end up attributing human attributes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I did a quick Google, I went to check Google to see what the world population was in terms of religion. And it was very surprising. Christianity is about 29.8%, right? About 30% Christianity. From about 10 years ago, it went down about 1%. Islam is about 24%. It increased about, I think, 2 or 3%, right? Hinduism about 14%, Buddhism about 6%, and then you have other religions. Agnostic people, people that believe in a creator, that know there is a creator, but say that I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in a religion, an organized religion. What's the percentage of that? It's about 12%. So all of these categories, excluding Islam, right? You have Christianity, you have Buddhism, you have Hinduism, you have agnostics. All of them believe that there is a God. And this all goes back to the hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, explaining to us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took out all of the descendants of Adam from him, took him out. And we were all asked that, Allah asked us, is he not our Lord? And all of us replied yes. And this is why people are born with an innate belief, a fitrah, right? That there is a creator. This is why people believe this. So this is why a lot of the world believe in a creator. Where they make a mistake is that they don't know who he is. They don't know his names. They don't know his attributes. And they don't know that he's the only one worthy of worship. So they associate other deities with him, right? This is where they mess up. Now, what was interesting that I found out was atheism in 2012. Guess what was the percentage of that? Give me a number. Okay, that's pretty close. It was about 13%. 2017, what do you think it was? 9%. Oh, it went down. Yeah. And according to the most recent studies, I think it's the Wynn Gallup International Studies. What do you think it is now? It's about 1 to 3%. So although the media makes it seem that atheism is something that is abundant, the only thing is we're getting access to people that voice their atheism. The fact of the matter is there's more people believing in a God. And you take Russia, for example, the Soviet Union, communist country, right? Once communism ended, most of the people in Russia, they believe in a God. You have Christians, you have Muslims, you have Jews there, right? So in terms of, and then also you have to keep in mind that the population of people that reproduce, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, well, I don't know about Buddhists, but Muslims and Hindus and Christians and other parts of like, not the Western Christianity, Western side of the world, but the other parts, more children are born too. So this also brings the number of why atheism is so low. But the fact of the matter is atheism is going down, it's gone down, okay? So these people, everybody, not everybody, but people that believe in a God, you know, this is part of our innate belief. Now, the Prophet ﷺ said it's because of their parents that they're led astray, and other hadith is because of the devils that they're led astray. We know that. So it is bad etiquette to not know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to not know His names and attributes, to not know that He is the only one worthy of worship. And because of that lacking, this is why you have so many different religions, so many people believing in different things around the world. And this is where they make the mistakes, right? By not knowing, for example, Allah is Al-Ahad, right? We say, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And I love saying this because, you know, if you translate the word Ahad, it means one, right? Say Allah is one. But the meaning of Ahad is different than just one. Ahad means that there is none before, there's none after. Ahad means that He is unique. When you remember this, then you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you learn about His attributes, even if the name is similar, like we say He has a face, we don't imagine it like a face of a creation, because Allah is Ahad, there's none like Him, right? So they don't know this. So when they don't know this, they stop worshipping Him as a human being. So this is why Christians worship man, or they say that man is God, or they give, the attributes of man to God. This is the issue. Now, are there sincere worshippers in their religions? Absolutely. There are people that are sincere that want to worship God, that want to worship Allah. They don't know how. So they're lacking the proper etiquette. So knowledge is very, very important. Very, very important. So the first and foremost, like I said, is the most important thing is knowing Allah, etiquettes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from that is knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next is our etiquettes with each other. Right? This is so important. Every single creation of Allah has rights over us, and we have rights over them. Every single creation. Every single creation. In the general sense, every human being has rights over us, right? That we don't backbite. Well, that's with the Muslims. But with other human beings, that we're just, that we don't steal, that we don't lie, that we're not deceitful, right? With our brothers, that we don't backbite and we don't slander, right? That we don't cheat. Parents have rights over their children, and likewise, children have rights over their parents. A husband has rights over his wife, and likewise, a wife has rights over her husband, right? Every single one of us has rights over one another. When you look at a relationship, and there are many failing relationships. Why is that? People are not upholding rights. Why aren't they upholding rights? Maybe they don't know. That's the first thing. Maybe they don't know. So if a person doesn't know what their own rights are, they're going to get walked on, right? People are going to take advantage of you. And when that happens, resentment's going to build up. Even if your closest loved one takes advantage of you over and over and over, eventually resentment's going to come. So you have to know your own rights so you can prevent this evil from happening. On the same token, on the same side of the coin, you have to know the rights of the people that you're dealing with, the relationship that you're having, whether it's your friends, family, wife, husband, children, father, mother, whatever, brother, sister. You have to know what their rights are. So you have to uphold their rights. This is good etiquette with each other. And also with regards to the earth, there's etiquette to dealing with the earth as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us on this earth, and He has given us rules and regulations. These rules and regulations are adab, is etiquette, it's akhlaq, it's mannerisms. Okay? So much so that the Prophet ﷺ, just a couple of examples. You know about environmentalism and how people are striving to protect the environment today. But this wasn't so much so known as before, right? In the previous generations, the environment was taken advantage of. Now, after seeing the destruction, people are trying to prevent that and stop that and reverse that. For example, deforestation, animals dying, animals being killed, plants being killed. The ozone layer was a big issue back in the 2000s, right? In the 90s. They say now it's been replenished. Now it's global warming, right? The environment is constantly being destroyed because of our actions, and this is a lack of etiquette. So in Islam, we don't do things like this. Islam has given us etiquettes on dealing with our environment. So much so that we're prohibited from urinating into a body of water that's stagnant, like a pond, for example. We're prohibited from urinating into that because it's disgusting. You're causing harm. And also, for example, the Prophet ﷺ said to not make birds as targets. So you know how people go hunting for sport? We're not allowed to do that. Prophet ﷺ forbade us from doing this. So environmentalism is a part of Islam. And this is etiquette with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is etiquette with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can kill animals for food. We can kill them for clothing. We can kill them in self-defense. That's okay. But for sport, we're not allowed to. So this is Islam, part of Islam, right? Everything in terms of etiquette with Allah, with the creation, with one another, it's all part of Islam. And everything that we do, like I mentioned, wudu, salah, sleep, eat, how we enter the house, how we leave the masjid, how we enter the masjid, how we enter the bathroom, how we leave the bathroom, ghusl, all of these things is etiquette, right? And etiquettes include things that are halal, things that are haram, things that are mustahab, meaning things that are good. When we do, we get reward. And if we don't do it, there's no sin. Things that are makruh, meaning we do it, there's no sin, but if we don't do it, there's reward. All of that is mannerism. It's everything that we do contains mannerisms. Now, with regards to etiquettes, different areas of Islamic studies may have a little bit of a tailored etiquette, meaning they may have something special that may not be included in other sciences. For example, when we talk about the science of hadith and the scholars of hadith, the muhaddithun, they had an etiquette that when a class on hadith was being taught, every single student there, their names had to be recorded. This was a way of preserving the hadith. And this is how everybody knew who studied with who studied under who. This is why in Islam, and it is only in Islam, we have books on the biographies of the narrators. the biographies of the people that narrate the hadith. Right? There's nothing like this in any other religion. To say this person studied under this person, who studied under that person, who studied under that person. No, more than that. That he was born in this year and he died in this year. Right? Or he lived in this area and traveled to that area. The details. This is only in Islam. Only in Islam. So you cannot have doubt on the preservation of the hadith. People have, even Muslims, people that call themselves Muslims, they don't believe in hadith. That's crazy. Right? Hadith and Quran are both revelations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Both. Copyrights. The scholars, the pious predecessors, they knew that when they were reading a book, they would say this, whoever was the author of the book, they would attribute that book to them. They wouldn't take credit for it. This is all part of Islam. So etiquettes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, etiquettes with the creation of Allah, meaning humans and every other creation. And lastly, etiquettes with oneself. There's a lot of etiquettes that we need to have for ourselves as well. We're going to go into the specifics of that as etiquettes of the student of knowledge. Because like I said, in different sciences, the etiquettes may be a little bit different, right? So for the student of knowledge, this is a general guideline, okay? The student of knowledge needs to understand, and a student of knowledge is anybody seeking knowledge. This is what I mean when I say student of knowledge. So you're here seeking knowledge, you're going to learn knowledge as you take more courses and more classes. You need to make sure you have the proper etiquettes. There's a reason why the scholars used to teach this as the first thing before they taught their students, or made sure that this was taught when they taught their students. Because if you're missing this, then seeking knowledge can be sinful. And I'll explain that in a few minutes. Hold on. But we need to have etiquettes with ourselves, with our teachers. There's etiquettes with our lessons, with our colleagues, with our books, and what we do with the knowledge that we learn. So we're going to go through all of those things, inshallah, as time passes. But today we're going to focus, and for the next couple of sessions that we have, we're going to focus with etiquettes with ourselves. And last time I was here, I mentioned that knowledge is worship. If you guys were here, you know that knowledge is worship. And etiquettes with ourselves begin with understanding that knowledge is worship. And I gave a lot of examples last time. I want to kind of add to that today, inshallah. One of the most important examples I talked about last time was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pairs knowledge with jihad for the sake of Allah. He puts them together, and He says in the Quran, Surah Tawbah, verse 122, "And it's not proper for the believers to go forth all at once. For there should be separate from every division of them a group that stay behind to obtain understanding of the religion and warn their people when they return to them that they may be cautious." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that when the Muslims go out in defense, in jihad, that a group of them needs to stay behind. So He's emphasizing this importance. And they need to stay behind so they can learn their religion and they can teach it when their brothers return. This is how important knowledge was. So a lot of scholars consider knowledge to be the most, or one of the most important acts of worship a person can do. The Prophet ﷺ said that whoever Allah wishes good, He gives them a fiqh of the religion. Meaning, He gives them a deep understanding of the religion. And deep understanding is knowledge. And regarding the seeking of knowledge, right? Prophet ﷺ also said that this world is cursed, and what is in it is cursed. Everything in this world is cursed. And what we mean by that is we spend a lot of time seeking status in this earth, right? Everybody does that. Generation after generation spend to seek money, wealth, fame, status, whatever it may be, land, property, cars, horses, children, etc., right? All of that is going to go at the end of the day. And He said, except the remembrance of Allah, with dhikr, right? And what is conducive to that, and whatever makes that remembrance, brings it forward, whatever accomplishes that remembrance. Or the one that has knowledge, or the one who acquires it, or the one who seeks it. Right? So seeking knowledge is something that is not cursed. Out of all the things that we can do, seeking knowledge is the one that's going to give us fruit. The dhikr of Allah is going to give us fruit. Right? So this is why we need to kind of focus on this. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also said in a hadith that he who follows a path on the quest to knowledge, Allah is going to make a path to Jannah for them easy. And I mentioned this last time, and there's more. I didn't mention this part. He said that the angels lower their wings over the seeker of knowledge in their pleasure because they're pleased with him. So when you're sitting here, right, when you're sitting here, you don't see the angels here. You're looking up, but you're not going to see them. You don't see the angels here. They're happy that the slaves of Allah are seeking knowledge for His sake. They're happy. So they're here and their wings are lowered because they want to witness this. So I mentioned in the course yesterday that on the Day of Judgment, that there's going to be intercession, right? And one of the hadith says that after the intercessions of the prophets and the angels and the believers, so we'll intercede for one another. Prophets will intercede for us, believers as well, angels as well. So this is what the angels are witnessing. Everything is going to be a witness for us, or against us. And it continues that the inhabitants of the heaven and the earth and even the fish in the depths of the ocean seek forgiveness for him. And he says the superiority of a man that's learned over the worshipper that is devout. There's a difference, right, between the devout worshipper and the person that's a scholar. He says that the superiority is that of a full moon compared to the rest of the stars. Meaning you see how bright the full moon is? The full moon is so bright that if there were no lights outside, you will still be able to see. I'm sure, we know from back home. Here we have the street lights everywhere. And when the full moon's not there, it gets really dark. Pitch black, so much so you can't see your hands. Right? So he said that the scholar is like the full moon, and everybody else is the most devout worshipper. Think about it. The person that's praying, fasting, doing dhikr, praying tahajjud. If they don't have knowledge, they're like the stars in the sky, just little lights. Little lights. And he says that the learned, the scholars, are the heirs of the prophets. And the prophets don't leave behind any dinar or dirham. The prophets the inheritance of the prophets, they don't leave back any money. So he's saying that the scholars are the inheritors of the prophets. And they acquire the knowledge. And he says he who acquires it has in fact received something that's very abundant. It's very abundant. Now, in today's time, I was talking to Sheikh Shakil recently, and he was mentioning that back in Medina, and you probably witnessed this yourselves, in the Masjid of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, after Salah ends, what do you usually see? What do you see? That you don't see here. Huh? Yes. Small groups. You will see groups here, and groups there, and groups there, and groups there, and groups there, and throughout the whole masjid of circles of knowledge. People sitting there seeking knowledge. And the student of knowledge, their routine is after they get up, pray tahajjud, pray fajr, after fajr start learning. Then after dhuhr, they take a little nap. And then after that, they get up, they continue to start learning. And that's amazing. So we don't do that. And we believe that the little that we do, we're always amazed by it. But in reality, we can always do more. And I always say, compare yourself to yourself from yesterday. And if you're not happy with where you are today, do something about it. Right? And don't compare yourself to other people. That's not how it should be. So knowledge, the problem with today's society is everybody wants everything right away. Right? What is that called? Instant gratification. Everybody wants instant gratification, right? Everybody wants likes, everybody wants shares, everybody wants retweets, whatever that is. Facebook statuses, all that stuff. Everybody likes that stuff. And the seeking of knowledge has been going down, right? Has been going down. And to the point where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, and this is narrated in Sahih Muslim and other books, he said that, verily Allah does not take away knowledge by snatching away from people. So knowledge is going to go away. And if you look around, this is what's happening. So he says, verily Allah does not take away knowledge by snatching it away from people, but He takes away knowledge by taking away the scholars. By taking away the scholars. So that when He leaves no learned person, when there's no scholars left, people turn to the ignorant as their leaders. And then they are asked to deliver religious verdicts, and they deliver them without knowledge, and they go astray and lead others to astray. If you look at the Muslim world, and something that bothers me personally, when you go to Hajj, when you go to Umrah, when you go to, to make, pilgrimage, is people are very shoving, angry, quick to harm others, right? Push them out of the way, elbow them, rock bottom people's elbow, those kind of things. No, it's a stupid joke. But people are fighting, right? People are fighting. Why? They want to touch the Kaaba. One, they want to make sure they don't get separated from their group, right? That's a fear, but to take the rights of somebody by physically harming them, pushing to get to that prayer space between the mimbar and the Prophet ﷺ's house. They push, they shove, and it's insane. And then when you ask yourselves, why? Why do people do that? And it's because, they don't know any better. They don't know any better. So this is what's happening, slowly, gradually. And now the Muslim world is in turmoil, right? War after war, people are dying, scholars are being taken away. Iraq used to be the center of Islam, the Islamic world rather. Knowledge was in Iraq. Look at Iraq now. So this is what's happening today. So this is why it is imperative that all of us make an intention and make sincere effort to seek knowledge to the best of our abilities. You may not be the next big sheikh. Nobody's asking you to do that. But you do have an obligation to do your best to learn. Because you're going to have children. And your children are going to have children. You're going to have family. You're going to have friends. People are going to need to learn from you. So every single one of us has an obligation to learn. So with regards to knowledge, I mentioned that seeking knowledge without the right intention can be sinful. Can be sinful. So a person sitting, leading salah, sitting or teaching you, or you're sitting in class learning, if you don't have the right intention, it could be sinful. So the first and foremost we need to understand is ikhlas, meaning sincerity. Right? We heard about the hadith narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that the deeds are considered by the intentions, right? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. We know this, right? And that a person will get rewarded according to their deeds. And he gave an example. So you're going to get rewarded according to your deeds. If whoever emigrated for Allah and His Messenger, then his emigration was for Allah and His Messenger. Meaning whoever does something for the sake of Allah, it's for the sake of Allah. But he says, whoever emigrated for worldly benefits or for a woman to marry, then his emigration will be for what he emigrated for. So the person that does something for the other reasons, well, they're going to do it for that reason. So the reward in seeking knowledge is to do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where the sin comes is if you do it for other reasons. I'm seeking knowledge so that I can be called sheikh. Or that I can, lead the salah. And people can know me as a qari. Right? Or maybe I can attract that opposite gender so that maybe I can marry them. You understand? These kind of thoughts is what going to make knowledge, the seeking of knowledge, into a sin. So Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he made 4 points. He said for the seeker of knowledge there are 4 points that they must adhere to, that they must follow. Okay? And he made these 4 points because sincerity and ikhlas is important and is the primary condition for any act of worship. Right? Ikhlas, sincerity, is the number 1 condition for any act of worship. Our intention, why we're doing this act of worship, for who we're doing this act of worship, this is imperative, this is important for any act of worship. And this is the same case with seeking knowledge. So, he made 4 points about seeking knowledge. The first and foremost, he said to intend by seeking knowledge to adhere to the commandments of Allah. So you have to make sure that these 4 points are the reasons why we're seeking the knowledge. Number 1 is to adhere to the commands of Allah, to stick to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us. Allah says in the Quran, فَاعْلَمْ إِنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Know that there's no deity worthy of worship except Allah. He is telling us to know. He's emphasizing knowledge. He's emphasizing that we need to know who Allah is, to know that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He is encouraging us to gain this knowledge. And so our goal in this world is to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as we can. And in order to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we must seek this knowledge. So again, the first one is to intend by seeking knowledge to adhere to the commands. And I'm saying this because Shaitan is going to come whisper to you, to all of us. Every single person. All of us are humans. Shaitan is going to come whisper to us, and what's going to happen is some of us are going to fall into the traps of Shaitan by seeking knowledge for other reasons. Or other people are going to fall into the traps of Shaitan by stopping the worship. Now, when I say worship, I mean seeking knowledge or any worship it may be, because Shaitan is whispering to them, your intentions are not correct. You know, when you're in the masjid that you're praying, let's say you're praying and you hear between salah, and you want to pray Asr, for example, and you're praying Asr, and then you hear footsteps walking into the masjid, right? Sometimes you're like, okay, let me just make sure my salah is perfect, that my standing is long, and my ruku is long, and my sujood is long, right? And then some people are going to fall into the trap of Shaitan by now making their intention for whoever's watching them to see that they're doing a great job at the salah. Other people, and the example I can give you is I want to not use salah as an example, I want to use teaching as an example. I have a very good friend of mine, and in his community, he was asked to give a halaqah. And he was so afraid that his intentions were not going to be correct that he refuses. He refuses. The good brother, mashallah. So this is another trick of Shaitan. Where Shaitan comes to you and says, oh, your intentions are not correct, don't do it. Don't do it. So now you don't do that good deed. Right? So now these 4 points I'm mentioning in terms of seeking knowledge, and you can apply these 4 points really to anything. If you know them, and you try, and when Shaitan's whispers come to you, you remind yourself and refortify your intention. Or rather, you fix your intention and you fortify that correct intention. So the first and foremost, like I said, is to intend by seeking knowledge to adhere to the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 2 is to preserve the Sharia. Okay? Now, my Muslim brothers and sisters, you need to understand, and I'm not saying anybody here, but I know there are people that may be watching, that the word Sharia has been labeled as such a negative thing in the media, which is completely unjust and unwarranted. What does the word Sharia mean? What does it mean? When I say Sharia, what do you think I'm saying? What do you think I mean? Just call it out. Islamic rules and regulations. Good. Anything else? Laws? What were you saying? Laws? Okay. My brothers and sisters, you need to understand this, that Islamophobia is real. And when people say things like creeping Sharia, they're targeting Muslims. So the common person can mix his Sharia with fiqh. Fiqh is laws and regulation. Okay? Sharia is Islam. Sharia is Islam. Everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in the Quran and in the Sunnah, that's Sharia. That's what it is. So this is what the technical meaning of Sharia is. Linguistically, it means a watering hole where animals and people come to get water. Right? It's life. It's what's needed for life. So this is what Sharia is. Sharia is everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in the Quran and Sunnah. This is what Sharia, this is your religion. Now Sharia is very specific. Very general. Very general. Fiqh is rules and regulations. Right? The word fiqh means true understanding. Right? It means true understanding. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed the Quran and Sunnah, and there are general rules and regulation. And not everything is addressed there. Where fiqh comes in is scholars take rulings that's found in the Sharia and they apply it to other rulings that's not specifically stated in the Sharia. That's what fiqh is. Sharia is unchangeable. It's unchangeable. This is Islam, right? For example, like our viewpoint on homosexuality. People are so scared to talk about this. But our viewpoint is that it's not permissible. It's not something that we say is acceptable from our viewpoint. But at the same token, it doesn't mean that we are unjust and that we cause harm to people and that we treat people with disrespect or ill. At the same token, that's the case. But it's part of the Sharia that this is not permissible in Islam. And for a Muslim to say otherwise, that's wrong. It's wrong. It's part of the Sharia that just an example, for an example. So this is what Sharia is. And what fiqh is just the bodies of laws that are deduced from the Sharia to explain or to make a ruling on something that's not covered in the Sharia. Okay? And I gave an example yesterday. We talked about this in our course. He is knowing Allah. For example, smoking weed. Right? Well, maybe cigarettes, for example. Maybe a better example. Right? It's not specifically stated in the Sharia that it is haram. But the scholars have ruled that it is. And that's fiqh. You understand? That's fiqh. So Sharias cannot be altered. Fiqh can, depending on the situation. For example, if there's a famine and the person steals for food, then the punishment is reduced. Right? It's not the typical had punishment that it may be, typical punishment that it may be. So fiqh fiqh can also put the Sharia on a pause if it's necessary. Right? That's the example I just gave. But fiqh also can be changed. So at one point smoking was what? Makruh. But now scholars are saying it's haram because they know the effects of it. They know the effects of it. Okay, that's the example of fiqh being a little bit more changeable. So point number 2 was to preserve it. So now when we're learning the Sharia, the Quran, the Sunnah, when we're learning about Islam, when we're learning how to pray, when we're learning how to read Quran, how to tajweed, when we're learning how to recite, when we're learning how to make wudu, how to all of these things that we're learning. When we're learning about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're preserving it. It's not preserved by putting it in a book and that nobody reads it and that nobody goes to it and that the book is only used as references, right? Our learning of it, our acting upon it, our teaching of it, that's preserving the religion. This is what we need to do. Remember I said, I gave the example of the Prophet Muhammad who said that knowledge is going to be lifted. Right? So we have a responsibility to preserve it. The other thing is to defend the Sharia. To stand against the innovations. Right? People that make innovations on the Sharia, for example, they say worshipping the grave is something that's a part of Islam. Absolutely it's not. Absolutely it's not. Praying to a saint, no. Right? Praying to somebody that's dead, that's asking them to pray for you, an intercessor between you and Allah. Another human being, another man that has sins just like you do, a man that has passed away that can't do. Just give it to everybody else. Don't worry about me. I appreciate it. I have enough. All of these things. We need to learn so that we can defend against these types of innovations. And learning Islam allows us to properly defend it, not defending it with violence. When we defend Islam, we're talking about using our knowledge, using our words, using our dialogue, talking to one another. This is how we defend it. We don't act violently. When you see the Muslims acting violently over things that don't make them happy, this is out of ignorance. This is completely out of ignorance. This is not part of the Sharia. This is not part of good etiquettes. This is bad etiquettes. The ability to talk and reason and teach, that's part of good etiquette. That's part of the Sharia. Not to resort to violence. And those who can't discuss it, those that are in ignorance, those that are ignorant, they're the ones who resort to violence. And step number 4 is to apply it in our life and teach it to others. So just a recap of those 4 points, because personally I find them very valuable. Because I said that shaitan is going to whisper to us. And I gave the 2 examples, and there may be other examples. So we need to be able to make sure that our intentions are correct. So again, number 1 was what? Give me one of them at least. It doesn't have to be in the right order. Number 1 is that we seek the knowledge for, what's the purpose? Adhere to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Number 2, that we preserve what Allah has revealed. Right? Our seeking of this knowledge is being preserved. How was the Quran preserved? The Quran was preserved in the hearts of the believers. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught the Quran, sure they wrote it down. But to double check the written down, it had to be double checked with the hufad, the people that memorized it. When a person leads salah, if they make a mistake, somebody's there behind them to correct them. Why? It's preserved in their heart. This is why the Quran will never be altered. I mean, of course it's never going to be altered. Allah says He's going to protect it, He's going to preserve it Himself. But to a non-Muslim, to help them understand that unlike the Bible or the Torah or whatever books of worship people have, the Quran's never going to alter. Because if you try to change a word and so is a hafid, he'll correct you. Right? Out of the billions of Muslims on this earth, almost 2 billion Muslims, how many hufad are there? So many. Right? So this is, you can explain this to a non-Muslim. This is why the Quran is never going to be changed. And the fact that the Quran will never be changed is a miracle. Right? This is how you know that Islam is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we said that we do it, we learn knowledge for the sake of Allah so that we can adhere to what His commands are, that we can preserve what He has revealed, and when people come to attack it, we defend it using the knowledge. Okay? And lastly, we apply it. Application is so important. You know, sitting and taking a lesson, as when you leave and you don't apply it, it's going to leave you. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. So you apply to the best of your abilities. And one of the ways you apply it is you do it, whatever you can, whatever you're supposed to do. And the other way is you teach it. And what destroys knowledge, now when I said when seeking knowledge for the wrong intentions can be sinful, Riya destroys knowledge. Riya means showing off. And tasmi' of Riya meaning showing off so that people can hear how righteous you are and how pious you are and how amazing you are because you seek this knowledge and how much knowledge you have. This is like the worst type. So if you seek knowledge for the wrong intention, then I said that it can be sinful. And the proof of it is this. This is a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in Sahih Muslim, where he mentions the first people that's going to enter the hellfire. Who are they? There's 3 people, 3 types of people, 3 groups of people. And they're all Muslim. No. No, this is a different hadith I think you're talking about. Very good. One that has memorized the Quran and the scholar, and the one that recites it and people call him a qari, right? The scholar. The one that's wealthy and gives charity. And what's the third one? Very good. The one that dies shaheed, the martyr, right? So what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls upon the martyr, calls them, brings them forward, and He asks them about what he did. And the martyr says, I fought for you and I died for you, for your sake. And he is told that he is lying, that you fought and died so that you're going to be called a brave warrior. And that was your intention. Remember, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that deeds are by the intention. So that person's intention was that people will call him brave. Well, he's going to be told on the Day of Judgment, that's what happened. You got what you wanted. So you didn't do this for the sake of Allah. Go to the hellfire. You'll be thrown into the hellfire. The next person is the scholar. And the person that knows the Quran. The person that recites the Quran. He is going to be asked about this. And he's going to reply, I memorized the Quran, I taught the Quran, I reached this level of recitation, so that, for your sake. And he's going to be told, no, you're a liar. You did it so that people are going to call you a qari. that people can say, oh, he recites so beautifully. And you got what you wanted. Your intention was for that reason, you got it. People called you Qari. People called you, people praised you. And he'll be thrown to the hellfire. And the last person is the person that is rich, who gives money who gives his money away in charity. Same question. Why? What did you do? And he's going to say, I gave my wealth away in charity for your sake, for Allah's sake, for your sake, Allah. He's going to be told he's lying. You did it so that people can say how generous you are. How generous you are. And people said it, you got what you wanted. Right now, you're going to go to the hellfire. Right? You're going to go to the hellfire. So it's very important that we don't have the wrong intention in anything that we do. And it's important that we don't have the wrong intention when we seek knowledge. Very important. And this wrong intention is what is going to be sinful for us. Now, a person that knows knowledge, has gained knowledge of whatever science, may have the wrong intention and will not benefit from it. But the people that he teaches, they may benefit from it still. You understand? So it's a double whammy, right? You learn it, you don't benefit from it, and everybody else benefits from it except you. Right? So keep that right intention. So this is the most important thing. Make sure that the intention is there for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that we do. Now, I mentioned already that sincerity is difficult. One of the scholars of the past, he stated that I do not find anything more difficult than my sincerity. Right? I don't find anything more difficult than my sincerity. So I already said, don't let shaitan trick you. Don't let shaitan trick you. Right? When you're in the masjid and you're praying, and all of a sudden, you're praying a little bit better because there are other people there, and you remember this is happening, make sure you change your intention and you say, no, this is not the reason why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. When you're learning, when you're sitting in classes of knowledge, and you realize that maybe I'm doing it because I want to make my wife happy, or my husband happy, or my parents happy, change that and remind yourself, no, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. I'm doing this for Him. So you fix your intention and you refortify what is correct. And you don't prevent yourself from doing a good deed when shaitan whispers to you to confuse you and doubt your intentions. So we will end here, inshallah. There's a lot more to talk about. We'll talk about this next month. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So regarding the seeking of knowledge,
yes.
There's so many fake options to choose from. So which ones do you know is correct? Which ones do we know how to choose from?
So in terms of the seeking of knowledge, in terms of fiqh, first and foremost, we need to seek knowledge in terms of we need to know what Allah has revealed in the Quran and Sunnah. So the Sharia, the Aqidah, what's mandatory upon us. In terms of fiqh, where some things there may be a difference of opinion. Okay, there's two ways of going about this. The first way is where you take the opinion of a scholar that you trust, and you take that opinion. The other way, which involves a little bit more effort from you, which at the end of the day is a better way, because you don't know who's going to make a mistake and who's not, right? I think it was Imam Malik or Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah, one of them, they were asked that if I follow the Sahaba, am I following the right path? You know what his answer was? He said no. Unless that Sahabi was on the right path of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So any human being can make a mistake. So like I said, one way is you can follow the opinion of a scholar that you trust. And the other opinion involves you to do a little bit more work, where you find the evidences of that opinion. What's the hadith that backs it up? What's the ayat in the Quran that backs it up? And then you pick the one that you feel is the most strongest between the two evidences. This is part of sincerity. This is sincerity. If you're really sincere for the sake of Allah, you're going to try your best to find out what is the most correct. Right? And again, I'm not trying to say that difference of opinions among scholars are not invalid. No, they're valid, but each of us has a certain amount of work that we may need to put in to find the right way, the right opinion. Any other questions? We have one more? Yes. No. Alright, so we're done? Oh, you have one more. Okay.
Okay, so Allah, like, if you know, like, Allah, if He judges us for the efforts or like the results that follow our efforts, which one does He judge?
So there's reward in both. So the question is the judgment on the efforts or the results? There's reward in both. So the Prophet ﷺ said regarding the person that recites the Quran fluently, right? He said that he is with the angels. And he said that those who struggle, that's the effort, right? He'll get double the reward. So the reward there is for the effort, right? But the result for the person, for example, in this situation, the one who recites fluently, he's regarded as with the angels. So there is reward in the effort and there's reward in the results too. If you do the effort and the result is wrong, then inshallah there is reward, because as long as the effort was done sincerely. But if you do the effort and the result was correct, then the reward is even more so. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
One last question, sorry.
Sure, no, it's okay.
So if like you have say you have like a Muslim friend who's like homosexual, and then he asks you to accept them, like, what do you do?
Okay. All right. Okay, so the question again is, if you have a Muslim friend that's homosexual. All right. So every single one of us, first let's just put it this way, that homosexuality is not allowed in Islam. There's various proofs of it, right? Various proofs of it. For example, Allah says that He created man and woman, man and spouses from you, right? And He says that they're male and female. Various ayat in the Quran who talks about the past generations that had homosexuality. There's punishment for those who are caught with it. So a Muslim that believes that homosexuality is okay, that's not right. Now, let me finish. Don't be upset if you are inclined to that direction of what I just said. Every single one of us has our own tests. The act of homosexuality is a sin, just like the act of backbiting is a sin, just like the act of drinking alcohol is a sin, just like the act of stealing is a sin. Okay? To say that homosexuality is not permissible, but a person falls into the sin, does not make them a non-Muslim. Doesn't take them out of Islam. It makes them a sinner. They can still make istighfar. Ask Allah for forgiveness. Okay? So when you have a person that has this inclination, a sincere Muslim would understand that this is something that Allah has tested them with. Their feelings and their desire is a test from Allah. Just like a non-married male, when he sees a very pretty girl, he has desire, but he knows that he's not married to her, he can't do anything, so he has to lower his gaze, and he has to fast. Just like that, for the person that has these inclinations, they have to prevent themselves. That's it. And as a Muslim, as a brother to another brother, for example, who may be in this type of mentality, we educate them. We say, listen, this is not permissible in Islam. And this is a test Allah has given you. And if you can prevent yourself from causing this sin, then you'll be rewarded for it. And if you do it, you're going to get punished for it. But there's still room for istighfar, to ask Allah for forgiveness. Right? We talked about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our class, that He is Al-Ghaffar and Al-Ghafur, right? That He forgives sins that may happen over and over. That's Al-Ghaffar. And that He's Al-Ghafur, where He forgives even the worst sins. So the worst sin a person can do is shirk, right? Worship other than Allah. And if a person asks Allah for forgiveness before they died from that shirk, then inshallah they're forgiven for that too. So similarly, for the person that has these inclinations, if they fall into the sin, you can ask for Allah for forgiveness. But to say that it is acceptable in Islam, that is absolutely wrong. That is absolutely wrong. to say that a person has these feelings and that they need to stop themselves from acting upon it, that's fine, right? You may have these feelings, you may have to stop yourself from acting upon it, right? So that's the advice that I would give you. And of course, you want to deal with everybody justly. You don't want to harm them through your words or through your actions, because at the end of the day, it's going to push them away. And you don't want to push anybody away, right? And at the end of the day, we're all sinners. But it doesn't mean that doing a sin is okay. It doesn't mean that either, right? It means that we do our best to stay away from it, and if we fall on it, we ask for forgiveness, and we do our best to stop. We make tawbah. Okay? Hope that answers your questions. Any other questions? Yes.
What is the more important, seeking knowledge or take actions?
What is the most, okay. If you don't know knowledge, you can't take actions. Right? If you don't know knowledge, you can't take actions.
But if we are seeking only knowledge
Yeah.
without taking actions,
Oh, this is why I say this is part of the sincerity. You have to apply. You make a very good point that I don't want anybody to think that I'm only stressing seeking knowledge, because I gave you the list of what it means to have sincerity in seeking knowledge, and in that list is to apply it. Yes, you must apply the knowledge. You must apply it. That application of that knowledge is sincerity. So you seek the knowledge in order to apply it, not just to hold it in your heart and just to recite it to those who ask you about it. No, you're absolutely right. You need to apply it too. You made a very good point there. So was that a question or a point you were making? I think you started with a question and then it became a point, right? That was good. So yes, seek the knowledge, and part of the sincerity is you apply it. That's preserving it. That's defending it. You teach it also. Good. Any other questions? Yes. So Sharia is basically a terminology. It basically means Islam. It basically means everything Allah has revealed to us in terms of what we need to do. Okay, that He's revealed us in the Quran, and that He's revealed to us in the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That is what Sharia is. It's just Islam in general. And it's just a terminology people use, and some people get it confused with other meanings. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, before we go, like I said before, all of us are human beings and all of us are prone to making mistakes. So if I had made any mistakes, I ask Allah for forgiveness. And if you find any mistakes that I've made, you can please correct me. I would be more than happy to correct myself once if you come to me with anything you need to say. Yes, question? No? Okay. I really appreciate you guys. I just want to remind you that we have a dinner and fundraiser coming up on Saturday. And this is in regards to the FCAT Institute. And what everybody needs to understand, and please, if you're listening online, just give me a few more minutes, is that what we need to do is ask ourselves when we pass away, do I have something that's going to continuously give me reward? Do I have something that's going to continuously gain me good deeds even after I have passed away? And he said yes. MashaAllah. So every single person, we should have a list of things that we are very steadfast towards, so that we have it for us in the next life. So in this example, the FCAT Institute, every Sunday we have about 100 students that come and learn. Every Sunday, 100 students. They're learning Aqidah. This semester I'm teaching about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His names and His attributes. How amazing is that? And they're learning about the fiqh of salah, they're learning about the fiqh of wudu, they're learning about things that bring doubts into their hearts and how to remove those doubts. They're learning, the fiqh of janazah, what happens after you die, so on and so forth. They're learning everything about Islam. So this is something that you can be a part of even if you can't be here physically on Sundays. It's very simple. It's really what you're willing to donate to make sure that this continues. Or whatever you're willing to donate to the Masjid, for example. So, and whatever charities that you do. So this can easily be something that gains you reward even after you have passed away. So this is something I like to remind myself of. So I ask you guys, on Saturday inshallah, there is going to be a dinner and fundraiser for Afghan Institute, and I ask you guys to show your support inshallah. So again, I ask Allah for forgiveness for any mistakes that I have made, and I will see you guys next month. I appreciate you guys. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.